Welcome back, everyone, to episode 12 of Really Rebound. Boy, I think I almost just forgot what episode I'm on. That's kind of crazy. Anyways, welcome back, episode 12. We got a great interview lined up here. We have a great person on the podcast. My good friend Paige decided to join this episode. This is a really good episode. We don't take a dive into junior hockey. We don't take a dive into being a hockey player. We take a dive into the media behind hockey. Paige has worked for the Calgary Flames farm team down in Kansas, the Mavericks. When she's going to university there, she's a softball player. She does freelance writing and stuff like that. So later on in the show, you get to listen to Paige talk about that, talk about her time writing, the challenges she had to face, and everything else like that. It was a very cool interview to have, and I love the idea, as I talk about all the time on this podcast, shedding light on all aspects of the game. So thank you again, Paige, for coming on, and we'll have that interview here very shortly. Just want to kind of talk about some things here. So it sounds like, well, actually, we're going to talk about the first thing. Very exciting stuff. NHL is confirmed in Phase 2. Now, what does that mean? Phase 2 means that they are allowed to go and train in groups of 6 on ice and off ice right now. So I retweeted, if you guys follow me on my Twitter, via Rebound, I retweeted a video of the Edmonton Oilers out on the ice, and oh my God, the sound of the ice cutting along again and everything else was so good to listen to. I'm so happy that the wheels are kind of turning on this. We still have a long way to go, but if things keep progressing the way they are, I think we're going to reach the end goal of hockey being back here by the end of July, because I believe that's just reading everything going on and how this whole phase system works. We still have to confirm the hub city. We still have to confirm hotels, restaurants, and everything else. But we got the playoff bracket. I made that way too early for prediction. I'm going to be making more predictions because I thought that was just a fun one to have off the get-go. But after listening to my predictions, I was like, oof, Bryce, maybe that ain't it. But we got that going on for the NHL. I also want to touch base on something that just came out with the whole movement that's been going on lately. I have it right here. We had Wayne Simmons, Evander Kane, Akeem Alou, Trevor Daley, Joe Ward, and Chris Steven Matt Dumba come out with a formation of the Hockey Diversity Alliance. It's an alliance. Basically, their mission's to eradicate racism and intolerance in hockey. So they formed this alliance now for the professional sport, and they've all signed off on this. I think this is awesome. They're going to educate more people on everything that's happened, in hockey with racism and everything else. And, we're going to hopefully, I truly believe, start steering away from having that in the sport. And I think, having these alliances and stuff like that is great. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to that. I think that's awesome that they were able to form that. And I felt like that was very important NHL news. So yeah, phase 2, we got, and then that alliance going on. So we got some stuff in the works. But we're going to also talk about some non-NHL stuff, but some kind of upsetting hockey stuff. So U Sports came out and announced that they are no longer starting fall sports. But what I've been reading online, so for whoever doesn't know, U Sports is university hockey here in Canada. So that would no players would be able to play any hockey as of the moment during the fall. They canceled it. Now, there's rumor that in January 1st they'd be able to start again with everything. It'd be a very short season, and I don't know how it'll work with playoffs. I think that would extend because usually university hockey is done in February. It goes September preseason, October to February, and March for playoffs and everything else. So we got to see what's going to happen with that. But unfortunately, no hockey happening for U Sports for the first semester. I'm very curious on what's going to happen with these athletes and their scholarships and everything else, if they're still going to be used towards their first semester, because I mean, lots of these guys are committed. They still got to go to school and to be on the team, even though if it's online or not. It's going to be all interesting how that one works. And it sucks because U Sports is such a fun league to watch. And I'm really on this podcast trying to like amp up that league and other leagues that are like local to like, Canadian communities and all that, because I personally don't think it gets enough recognition. It definitely needs more recognition, if anything. So hopefully in January they are able to get up and going again, and we can watch some university hockey here in Canada. I highly recommend anyone listening to go watch some of that, because it's some of the best hockey you'll watch for Canada, obviously, minus like our whole junior. So, but all these guys are basically junior A WHL guys that go out to university. And I also recommend you check out the post-secondary leagues as well, like ACAC and stuff like that, because that's also some good quality hockey. But we'll get into those topics another time. Just wanted to touch base off of the U Sports, unfortunately not being able to happen. So a little downside to that, but so I'm going to send it over now to the Paige interview. Like I said, it was a great interview having Paige on. She knows her stuff, and she actually educated me a lot during this interview on what it takes to be a media member and everything she looks. And she's very talented with what she does. So I hope you all really enjoy this interview with Paige. See you guys after. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 12 of Beer League Rebound. Today, we have another exciting interview. We're kind of going with a different style. We have someone who's involved with behind the scenes of the game, I want to say, people who run the media and do stuff like that. It's going to be very interesting. They're very involved with the farm team for the Calgary Flames. I have one of my friends, Paige, joining us. She went to St. Mary's University just outside of Kansas. She went for digital communications, and she's a college softball player. And during her time, she got to work with the farm team for the Calgary Flames. So I'd like to welcome to the podcast, Paige.
Thanks, Bryce.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So this is going to be pretty interesting just because you are very involved with them for like the past 3 years, right? Like with the Calgary Flames farm team, the Mavericks.
Yeah.
So kind of give us like an insight of what you all did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I transferred to University of St. Mary my junior year. So the same year I started going to there was the same year that the Calgary announced that the Kansas City Mavericks would take over as their ECHL affiliate. So I found that very interesting because not very many people down there know anything about the Flames. So down in the Midwest, they don't watch a whole lot of hockey. So I started going to games and stuff and just checked it out. And they're in just a little barn that's about the size of the Stampede Corral that the Flames practice in. So it's tiny, but the fans are pretty rowdy down there. But I started going to a couple games and everything. And then my dad actually has been on the forum Calgary Puck pretty much since I've been born. And he actually contacted an editor from that site, and he contacted the Mavericks to get media credentials. So I started, instead of paying for tickets, I started sitting up in the press box and covered the team and did some live tweeting. I kind of ended up live tweeting for it ended up being 2 different accounts. So I was writing articles for them, doing game updates, kind of any news that would break. I kind of had the insider scoop for the Mavericks, which is really cool. So I would hear about people getting signed or people getting traded or people coming up or down from the AHL. So it was kind of nice to kind of see the background kind of aspect of it that you don't always see, especially as a fan. You kind of just sit there, you watch the game, you enjoy it, and then you don't always think to go look in the press box to see if, oh yeah, that player's supposed to be in Stockton right now, and now they're in Kansas City. So it's kind of interesting to see kind of all the behind the scenes stuff for sure. But it was a really cool opportunity, and I really enjoyed the 2 years I was there. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
That's so wicked. I'm really jealous of you just being able to like have like that insight. Like you sound pretty much like you're almost like a bit of an insider, which is so cool to think about it. Like just having that little bit of like you said, oh, they should be like in Stockton right now, not here. Like that's pretty wild to think about, knowing all that while the fans have no idea what's going on, right? They're just sitting there watching the game.
Mm-hmm. I definitely miss it now. Like now that I just cover the Flames, I don't have the insider scoop as much, so I don't go to like the practices or the warm up skates or anything to kind of see kind of people talking, and then the guys that are there pretty much 24 hours a day know all kind of the secrets and everything of the team. So I don't really get to hear those ahead of time anymore. And it's interesting to be kind of behind the scenes because you understand guys' personalities a lot more. So like anyone can say that their favorite player is this type of person, but then you don't know who they actually are off the ice. So it's actually really cool to kind of connect with the guys and get to know their personalities a little better. So that was definitely something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely. Just like you said, having that personal relationship, especially when in the ECHL, like these are guys who aren't making like a lot of money. They're just out there still chasing at the dream and all that. So I imagine they're just a whole lot more like, I want to say, humbled with everything, or is that not like, or you know what I'm saying? Just they're probably a lot more just willing to work hard, and they're just probably some good people to be around, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, for the most part, most of the guys are kind of just happy that they're still playing at a professional level. A lot of them came from the NCAA. A lot of them played D1, so they were just going and they're just trying to play hockey any way they could. And to play it in front of a crowd was just something that always made them happy. There were some guys that kind of took it for granted for sure, but they would have kind of themed nights down there. So they'd have like a Star Wars night or a Marvel night or something, and then it would completely sell out. So it's like when they come out for the starting lineups, the crowd would be going crazy, and then they'd have little kind of in-game things. Like if they scored 6 goals, everyone in the crowd would get free burgers from this one sponsor place, and they would go nuts if they ever got 6 goals. So the guys after the game were pretty riled up about that, and were pretty excited to see the crowd. And it's just like I would say for the most part, the whole team was pretty much like that. But there are the occasional guys that they play in Stockton most of the year, and then they drop off or something happens, or they're not so great off the ice, and they come down to Kansas City and they think they're too good for the ECHL. So you kind of get a little bit of that, but that's something as a fan you don't notice. But when you're kind of within kind of the tight circle of the media or behind the scenes, you kind of hear what the coach is saying and that kind of stuff. So there were guys for sure that were too good for the ECHL, but they just didn't have a spot for them, or there were guys that thought they were too good for the ECHL, but they weren't humble enough to kind of realize like you might be kind of playing yourself out of a career here if you're not doing the right thing and everything. Like if you're going to be the type of guy that doesn't show up for game tapes or shows up late to morning skates and all that kind of stuff, like it's like some of the better guys on the team would get sat for that kind of stuff. So they're losing chances to even get called back up again. So there wasn't a whole lot of that, but it does still happen. There's always politics in sports, so it's kind of interesting to see how that happens at that level for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like you said, you kind of get to follow that whole aspect of it. And, you know, I just think that's kind of crazy that even at that level that some guys, but hey, that's just how some people are when they're given certain situations. But what am I to say? But so you mentioned that you are with the you cover the Calgary Flames now, right?
Yeah.
But it's not as like advanced, or you're not as close as what you were with Kansas. What are you kind of doing with the Flames now compared to, like, you're not obviously in the press box and as involved, but are you still like relatively close with the Flames?
It's kind of more of a hobby. Like I would say with the Kansas City Mavericks, it was more of kind of, I already had my internship by that point, but it could have replaced my internship. But as far as Calgary goes, it's almost like I write for fan-sided, so it's pretty much fan writing. So I don't, like, if I go to the games, I don't have press credentials or anything, but I'll still be taking notes and everything to write about the game afterwards. I do like really watching the warm ups because I think that really sets the tone for the game. So I actually went to the Heritage Classic this year and I was watching some of the warm ups, and it was just, you watch the guys miss the shot 6 times the warm up, and then when the game's on the line, they miss that shot again, and you're just like, gotta warm up the way you play. So it's like you see I still kind of pick apart that kind of piece of it, but a lot of my reporting comes from pretty much just watching the games at home, and kind of I follow a lot of insiders on Twitter where I'll kind of see what they're saying in the post-game press conferences, stuff like that. Or I do follow most of the team on social media, so I'll see kind of what they're posting and everything, kind of cross-reference everything. And I do kind of have a group chat with all the writers for fan-sided, so if there is anything I have questions about, or if guys saw something I didn't or anything, we can kind of bounce ideas off of each other. But right now with the Flames, it's very much fan reporting. But I did go to kind of the training camps that they have down at COP, and I did try to get credentials one year there, and just there was no service there. It kind of fell through. I wasn't sure where I was supposed to go, so I was there and kind of reporting a little bit, and there were a couple goalies that were in Kansas City that would have recognized me, but didn't quite get my foot in the door there. So definitely working at it. I want to try and I don't think I would get to the exact same level that I was with the Mavericks that I would with the Flames, but it would be nice to kind of be in there a little bit more, because even now when I hear press conferences and stuff and I hear some of the media questions, I kind of shake my head a little bit because I'm like, who do they let into these things? But it would be nice to kind of get in there on that, even if I'm at the back of the row or anything like that. It'd be really cool to kind of get to that point.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool to actually just even like think about. But like you mentioned, I gotta agree with you. I don't understand some of these media people that get in there, and I'm not even like a true media person like yourself. Like I didn't go to school for that, and I see some of these media people. I'm like, or the questions, and I'm like, what are you even talking about with these guys right now? Like you got like $1 million athletes in front of your face, and these are the questions you're asking them. And
yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And the second, so since you went down to Kansas to play softball, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned when you were watching Heritage Classic there that you were kind of picking apart, like with their warm-ups, if they missed 6 times during the game, they missed like a game-winning shot or something like that. For when you were playing softball, do you think you took that tool from playing softball yourself as a college athlete and are using that towards like your writing now when you're looking at other athletes for warming up and all that? Because like as an athlete like yourself, you were always analyzing like probably like your game day routine, what you had to do, what was make you perform the best that day, and what you had to do for warm up. So there's like going in with that mindset help you out with your writing when looking at these other guys?
Oh, definitely. I am very fortunate that I have a sports background, because that definitely helps with this type of thing. And I don't know if I would be writing about hockey if I didn't have a sport background. But it's kind of you write differently when you have the mindset of an athlete, and you also sometimes I find with some of the articles that get put out there, not even ones that are like the professional ones, just fans throwing stuff up on forums and stuff. They don't realize that at the end of the game, like, players are people too, and I know not all the players are looking on their social media to see what guys have to say about them, but on the other hand, there are people out there that do. So it's like you have to kind of understand what it is, kind of the challenges, the ups and downs of being an athlete, to kind of understand what's going through someone's head when they're trying to kind of play at their best, or if they're going to they're kind of in a rut or something's going on. So definitely, I think kind of the experience I had, I wasn't a professional athlete by any means, but playing at pretty much the highest level that I could for my skill set allowed me to kind of relate to these guys to a certain extent. And then actually my senior year when I was playing, I was one of the captains of my team, and I would definitely, whenever I would interview the captain of the Mavericks, I would definitely listen to what he had to say and kind of apply it to my own team, because he just was very insightful, and just his kind of comeback story was so inspiring that it was like, I want to do what this guy's doing for his team. So it was definitely, I did flip-flop a lot of things around with hockey and softball, and it's actually kind of funny. I did use some warm-up songs as my walk-up songs for softball, so I was kind of pulling from hockey for that. My teammates had no idea where these songs were coming from, and I was like, you wouldn't get it. This is the Mavericks hype song. You don't have to understand. So there's definitely a lot that kind of overlaps that way.
Yeah, and I gotta agree with you on when you mentioned about some fans you talk about athletes who don't understand they're humans. I kind of covered something in my last episode or 2 episodes ago where Matt Murray was getting just absolutely torn to shreds at a restaurant from a father telling him that he'll never be as good as Fleury. And I just remember reading that and thinking to myself, like, I remember going and playing games, traveled, not high at all, and having other fans from like other teams or like other kids and all that in the stands ripping me apart in the net. And I remember how embarrassing that felt. And I'm in a town of like, 1,000 people. So I couldn't imagine how these athletes, like how you mentioned, feel when like it's like thousands of people coming at them day in, day out, ripping them apart when they don't even have an understanding or have played sports for that matter to put themselves in that type of shoes, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I saw a lot of that when I was covering the Mavericks, because a lot of my kind of Twitter community that I had on my sports accounts there were a lot of the fans. And there are fans that are very knowledgeable, but there's fans that don't even know the rules. The only thing they know is a goal and a fight. Everything else, they have no idea. They don't know offside, icing, anything like that. If you ask them, they'd have absolutely no idea. So it's like they're trying to come at these guys that don't even know what they're coming at them for. And it's kind of interesting that you mentioned Matt Murray as well. It's like, I feel like, especially in the ECHL, it's the goalies that take the most heat, because it's like the goalies are expected to perform the best because they're kind of in a developmental stage down there. So that was kind of a big thing that I was seeing a lot of, especially kind of in the Flames community. I was seeing that kind of overlap, because Mason McDonald was down there the 2 years that I was down there, and a lot of people were saying that he was the wrong pick for the Flames. He's no longer under contract with them anymore, but it was just so upsetting that I would see how well he would play some days. Like, he'd have his good games and his bad games, don't get me wrong, but there was like, he looked like an elite goaltender sometimes. And it's just the Calgary fans don't see it, so they see some stats and they're like, this guy is trash, we shouldn't have him on our contract. And it's like, you don't actually see how he's playing though, you just see the game sheet. It's like his defense left him out to dry, and like he did his best kind of thing. So it's kind of frustrating to see a little bit of that, and it's just, I really feel for the players, like you said, like they have larger communities of people coming at them, and it's so unfair. But it's like, I know it's part of the gig, but it's like, I just wish people would understand kind of the mindset of an athlete and kind of the grind that it takes to kind of, these guys are doing that pretty much for a living. Like, hockey is their life. That is like, they eat, sleep, breathe, bleed hockey. That is everything. So it's like, it's really unfortunate that some guy that just decided to show up for an hour on a Friday night is trying to tell a professional athlete how to do their job. Like, it's ridiculous. I know it won't change, and there's always gonna be a little bit of that, but I mean, if it could be limited a little bit, I would definitely like to see that.
I could not agree more. That was everything you just said there was on par of how I feel about these situations as well, because these people aren't in these athlete shoots and they can't relate at all, and they only come in for an hour on a Friday night to rip apart. And there's nothing worse too, because I imagine lots of the ECHL guys, like, some are older, but most of them are relatively young, right? And it's the same idea with the World Juniors when Canada loses, let's say, a gold medal game, and people absolutely like shred young people apart for not performing while they're scoring a goal. And I'm always like, okay, this is ridiculous, folks. Like, these are young people that are representing our country or representing our team. We shouldn't be ripping them apart. We should be helping build them so that they can learn from what happened during this time and progress into becoming better athletes and everything else. Because like, you work better when you're feeling good about yourself and you have a whole support team behind you. So I feel like more fans and people should be like a better support system around athletes than what they are at times. But we'll see if that'll change.
It's kind of funny you mentioned the World Juniors, because that year that Canada lost to the States in the shootout, the goalie in net was Tyler Parsons, who went to Kansas City the next year. And I actually asked him about that, and he laughed about it because he just knew how, like, obviously hockey's huge in Canada, and then he'd have teammates who were Canadian and American. It was like he was actually the one that made the game-winning save on that shootout, and it was very cool to kind of hear his background too. And you feel bad for these young guys for sure. It's like in the ECHL, a lot of them are around the 22 to 25-ish. And if you have a guy that's kind of in the late 20s, early 30s, he's considered a veteran on the team. So you got to feel bad for them, because either we've been that age, or we understand kind of when you're getting towards the end of your career, like you want to keep playing until you can't play anymore. And if the fans are kind of telling you can't play anymore, you don't want to be kind of forced to retire, as opposed to like, no, like I want to end on a high note and be done. It's unfortunate, but it's the way of sports sometimes.
So would you say that's like the hardest part of your media would just be like dealing with stuff like that? Or is there something even harder while doing media for either Kansas or the Flames?
What was challenging about it's not so much challenging for the Flames, because a lot of that is I have a lot of free range for that, so I can pretty much write about whatever I want. I just submit it to an editor, and then they'll go through it. If there's something they don't like, they let me know. There's not a whole lot of controversy with that, and it's like unfortunate that I don't get to talk to the players, but it's like when you're interviewing a player, it's a different dynamic. So it's like a lot of the challenges I did face were in Kansas City. So starting out, I was the youngest person in the press box, and I was female. So those were two things that kind of already people were kind of thinking I didn't know what I was doing or didn't know what I was talking about. So I go in there, and they just think that I'm just one of the in-game hosts that's just going to ask the same questions you get every game, like, oh, how did that win feel, coach? Or did you get pucks in deep? Like all those types of lines you hear every single interview. And it was really frustrating at first to try and prove to not only like, I didn't feel like I had to prove to the team and the coach and the players so much, but just the other media members. I feel like I really had to prove myself that I did know what I was talking about, and I was there for a reason, per se. Like I did have, over time, I did gain the respect of the players, and the coach had a whole lot of respect for me. And it was just the challenge at first. There's usually only 4 of us doing the post-game interviews, but just to get a word in was like impossible. Like I would try to go in with a couple questions in the back of my head, and then sometimes those questions would get asked, but sometimes I'd just be shut down because they didn't think I had anything to say. So that was frustrating, but I kind of had to work through that to be like, no, like make your voice heard, speak up, like you know what you're talking about. So it was very frustrating to see people that didn't know the game as well as I did kind of trying to step on what I was trying to do. So there was guys that were asking post-game interview questions and pronouncing players' names wrong. Like they didn't know anything about the rules, or they were just looking off one stat and then carrying that stat through their whole interview. And it's very frustrating to see. So it's definitely, there's always kind of a hierarchy in that kind of thing. And obviously the guys that have been there longer, have been around the team longer, are going to get priority. But if you are kind of someone that is either wanting to do fan reporting or kind of get your foot in the door that way with the team, it's definitely a learning curve to kind of gain your confidence to kind of speak up, and also make sure that you're kind of making yourself known and making yourself you don't have to make yourself sound smart, but you do need to know what you're doing, that's for sure. So a lot of that was the biggest challenge. And then the hardest thing with the team itself was when they got absolutely like annihilated, like when they got their butts kicked so bad that they didn't even want to look at anybody. Those interviews, a lot of times I would skip those interviews because anything they have to say is probably not reportable anyways. There's going to be too many star signs to bleep out the swears that they have to say. But a lot of that, we couldn't even get a word out of the coach when they lost like a 7-0 game or something. We would not even bother talking to the coach. Like he respected us enough to come out and say a few words if he had to, but just you could feel the whole locker room and the whole area just like go dark. Like you did not want to be the one that speaks up, or you didn't want to be like, oh, well, what if you made this change? Or what if you did that? Like you didn't want to have anything to say about that. You just wanted to get, we got to do better tomorrow, and then walk away. You just need that line and then walk away. But a lot of times the players are mad too. Like when you lose a game that like really bad, or if you lose a close game like late in the game or something happens, like the guys don't really want to talk about something that's still fresh on their mind. Like it's tough, but you also like that's why I'm glad that I can kind of feel for them in an athlete way. That I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy. I don't know if you're talking to the goalie after the game. You're like, well, this guy let the game-winning goal in with 5 seconds to go. Like that's gotta hurt, or he just lost a shutout or something. When you kind of have to consider those things going into it, because then you can kind of understand why they're feeling the way they're feeling, and then you know kind of what questions would kind of be off limits. But not everyone knows kind of that type of thing. So it's a challenge, but you kind of learn and you go with it. And definitely being an athlete helps out with that for sure.
That's a great answer on how you were able to like break down and like realize all those challenges. So, you know, like you mentioned, I had on this podcast, I've had one female athlete come on before as well, my friend Tori, and she played college hockey, and she talked about like that whole like stigma of her like being a female athlete playing college hockey, and like how she always felt like she got like overlooked, and she felt like she always had to prove. So as you were kind of saying, it was kind of like that with like not necessarily players and coaches, but more like the media members, like letting yourself know that, you are a female, but your knowledge of the sport's subpar higher than probably half you guys here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one guy that was the guy I always sat beside in the press box. He was an awesome guy. He helped me out a lot there. He really helped me kind of grow as kind of a reporter and a writer, and he also opened up some opportunities for me. He was a huge Blues fan, so we just talk hockey all the time. He actually knew more than one player on the Calgary Flames, because if you ask anybody in that rink, they're like, oh, I know Johnny Hockey, that's about it. And it's like, okay, there's other players though. So you kind of realize that these guys aren't really watching the Canadian hockey teams very much, but he was awesome. Like, shout out to him. He was great. I was really happy that I had him there, because some of the other guys, they're just working for newspapers for the local area, so they're just trying to get kind of a game summary and leave. So it's nice to actually have other hockey fans in there. It wasn't all bad, but there's also, I wouldn't even say it's bad. Sometimes you just have that little bit of power struggle, I would say, because some of the guys have been there around longer, and then definitely the female thing does discredit it a little bit, which is unfortunate. But I mean, every day you hear more stuff about females kind of stepping up in sports, like new baseball coaches, football referees, stuff like that. So it is on the turn, and I'm happy to see that. But definitely, any female athlete out there knows that still goes on. So it's unfortunate, but it's part of athletics right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm very happy to see it changing as well in the right direction, just because, it is such an dumb thing to just, compare, like, just because someone's a female, they don't have any, like, or knowledge about the sport per se, right? I think that's absolutely ridiculous, but so I'm glad it is changing for the right direction, and kudos to you on kind of encouraging more of, like, female reporters and females and, like, media for sports and all that, because I think that's absolutely kick-ass.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Well, I definitely, like, it makes me happy to see, like, even the people who run, like, the Calgary Flames social media, like, there's, like, 3 women who do it. And then there was that broadcast that was all women and everything. Like, it's nice that they're kind of acknowledging it more. So it's kind of a little bit, it's good to see, and it does motivate people that it's like, if I don't know, I don't usually get bad comments or anything on the articles I post, but if I were to kind of get bad comments and people look at the byline and see it's written by a woman and all of a sudden start going off and internet trolling or whatever, if I did get a little bit of that, like stuff like stories like that where women are stepping up in the sports industry, like that would definitely kind of motivate me more and kind of realize that everyone goes through it, and it is what it is.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I just want to say thanks for coming on to my podcast and giving us a good insight on everything media hockey related. I personally didn't know this much about it, and I felt like I could talk about hours with you about it, because it sounds like a very interesting field, and I'll have to have you back on the podcast again to talk about it more when there's hockey going on again, because I imagine you're just excited as I am for the rest of these phases to complete for hockey, hey?
Oh yeah, definitely. I haven't even been really watching like the replays or anything. So I'm like, I need new, fresh content. I need the Battle of Alberta back. We got gypped at the last game. We need it back. It's nice to go back and watch the replays and everything, but it's like I've seen this already. I need new, fresh content to look at and not just talk about what the guys are doing in their off season and that kind of stuff. Like it's not even an off season, but we are starved for content right now. So anything we can get, definitely with all the rules being lifted and then kind of plans to relaunch, I'm definitely looking forward to that, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait as well. It's gonna be good. But so yeah, thanks for coming on there, Paige.
Of course, thanks, Bryce.
Hope you all enjoyed that interview with Paige. She was absolutely great to have on. Got some exciting stuff coming out. I'm going to wait until it all gets posted and everything else, but make sure you stay tuned to all my social media on some exciting stuff in the work with her. But I won't go into too much detail just because I want to personally see it, and then once I see it and all that, I'll talk about it on the podcast and everything else. But we'll leave it at that. So I want to save this last little bit of episode for some uplifting stuff that's happening in either for my podcast and for everything that's going on with COVID right now in Alberta. So we got some very good news today, the day I'm recording. As of now, for June 12th, the arenas get to open up again. Yes, all arenas, not all of them are going to open June 12th. They're going to open when they're able to follow proper guidelines and everything else, make sure their ice is in, but all arenas will be able to open again. Let's go. Oh my God, you guys have no idea how pumped I was to find out that arenas are open. I swear to God, I bugged my family all day about this now. I actually feel bad for them, but I am absolutely thrilled knowing that this summer I still can go onto the ice and have some fun and still follow proper guidelines, obviously, and everything else. But I'm really excited to have that, that therapy again, that fun. I'm so excited. And I think I'm going to have some good stuff for this podcast coming out now with me going on the ice and talking to friends and seeing what it's all been like for them with their training during this and, seeing how it's worked out for them during the whole with no ice resource and getting to watch all of it. So look forward to some kind of hockey talk, kind of not, but your boy is going to be on some ice here soon. And I am very excited, which is also a good thing as well because it's going to help out with some minor hockey teams getting on the ice here soon. And, we can start. As Isaac and I talked about a couple episodes ago, like 6 episodes ago, we talked about how important this time is for player development. So now that can be a huge focus coming forward with these restrictions getting lifted and the guidelines being followed. We can start working on some more player development again, and hopefully this upcoming season will all be able to go smooth as planned. It'll definitely be a little different of everything, but the idea of hockey being in phase 2 just warms my heart because I talked about it on this podcast with Smiley and a couple times. But I can't believe they had arenas in the same category as an outdoor concert and a nightclub. Like, what? Thank God they reevaluated and looked at it because I thought personally that was a little ridiculous. And I'm glad it got changed over. So look forward to a little bit of hockey talk from me and, everything else going on. It's, it's going to get good. So look forward to that. Lastly, I want to talk about, if you guys don't follow me on social media, I did a little sneak peek of some stuff, actually, a certain item. I've talked about before how this whole podcast is like a passion project of mine, and I, want to explore all options within stuff like that. And one of the options was apparel, merchandise, whatever you want to call it. So I dropped a logo design. I ordered a sweater. I'm currently wearing it right now, actually. It's on my Facebook. Go check it out. See if you like it. Let me know what you think about the design and stuff like that. I hopefully will be having like a mini store here open up soon, where if anyone who wants to support me and likes the podcast can feel free to pick one up, and it just helps me with this run everything and do all this. Been working my crazy hours at work and school and doing all this, so I've been feeling a little tiredness from the grind, but it's been fun, and I'm really excited to explore or actually expand my horizon with this podcast, with this apparel stuff. So all the hard work and tiredness is gonna pay off. I know it will. So, but that's all I have for today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Paige. Make sure you're keeping up on all my social media. I will be posting some exciting stuff there in the next couple of days or a week. And yeah, that's all I really have. We've got some more exciting interviews as always, so stay tuned for that. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week.